Exclusive contracted novel by Feilu Novel Network. Special Forces. General's undercover private visit, mistakenly identified as a gatekeeper, founder of the Blue Army, Fang Ping, unexpectedly traveled to the world of special forces and became a new recruit in the cooking class. He, who had fought on one side in his past life, decided to live a leisurely life. One day during lunch, a gray-haired veteran came to the cafeteria and often discussed various military reform plans with Fang Ping. "Where do you think we lost in the last performance? Where do you think reform should start? Can you tell me, if you were to become a commander, what would be your first thing to do?" Fang Ping has nothing to do and often chats with this veteran in the cafeteria. Based on past life experiences, boasting about various things with veterans. However, after the system awakened, it unexpectedly asked him to form a modern Blue Army unit. Just as Fang Ping was worried. Suddenly, the veteran looked at him and told Fang Ping, "We have a showdown. Actually, I am the commander of our military region." Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 1. General goes to the Grassroots and kneels for flowers to reward. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. General goes to the Grassroots and kneels for flowers to reward Dragon Kingdom. Central China Military Region. It has been over a month since the beginning of summer. The weather is hot. It's currently time for lunch. You can see. Everywhere, there are figures of soldiers who have finished training, sweating profusely and holding their lunch boxes, walking towards the cafeteria. The atmosphere is very solemn. On an empty oily road surface, a military green Raptor military jeep was slowly moving. "Commander, it's already noon. Do we still need to continue our inspection?" The clerk sat in the passenger seat and turned to look at an elderly person in a regular training uniform in the back row. With a hint of respect and caution on his face, he inquired. "It's hard to imagine. Such a person is not wearing any military rank from top to bottom. Even the most ordinary elderly person would have a dedicated car for pick-up and drop-off, equipped with a document. As a document taking care of the elderly person's daily life, I am very clear in my heart. This old man is one of the few big shots in the entire Central China military region. His military rank is even higher than that of a lieutenant general. It can be said that there are no more than 5 people in the entire military region who can be on an equal footing with him. In ancient times, it was definitely in existence at the level of feudal officials. It can be imagined how terrifying this old man is. Go on. Try to visit all the other squadrons of the 609th Regiment today. As for lunch, just have some in the cafeteria of any squadron." Zhu Qingwu's gaze withdrew from outside the car window. With a smile, he instructed. Appearing extremely approachable. "Okay, Commander, I'll have the platoon below prepare immediately." On the passenger side. "Take out your phone and prepare to contact the next patrol target platoon." "But I never thought about it." He was stopped directly by Zhu Qingwu behind him. "Wait, don't notify." "What's wrong, Commander?" The document had a somewhat bewildered expression. "Have you forgotten that our operation this time is a secret? With such a phone call, you must have messed up and exposed all of our operations this time." Zhu Qingwu looked at the document reproachfully. Upon hearing this, the document immediately became somewhat panicked. "I dare not make phone calls anymore." "Sorry, Commander, I forgot." Negligence in handling subordinate documents. Zhu Qingwu waved his hand generously. "It's just a small matter, because it's making it difficult for a younger generation. He's not that stingy yet." "All right, I'll go to the platoon later." "Don't expose it to me, just do it." This secret inspection operation can actually be considered as a whim of Zhu Qingwu. Just yesterday, the annual large-scale military confrontation exercise has come to an end. The Blue Army achieved a complete victory. This made his face shine as the commander of the Blue Army. Today's secret inspection operation was launched. He wants to see what kind of training state the soldiers in his platoon are in. Sting. A sound of tires rubbing against the ground appeared. The military vehicle stopped outside a training base near a platoon. Zhu Qingwu got off the car, carrying documents. The two of them wanted to avoid revealing their identities. Hiking into the Eagle Company several hundred meters away. After passing several guard levels, Zhu Qingwu and his companions successfully arrived inside the training ground of the Eagle Company. "Commander, it's already noon, why don't you eat first?" The document suddenly spoke up as a reminder. Glancing at the soldiers who had already eaten lunch and were gradually emerging from the interior of the cafeteria not far away, Zhu Qingwu's stomach involuntarily growled. "It seems that I have already smelled the aroma of the food in the cafeteria. Okay, let's take a look at how the soldiers' meals in the platoon are." Feeling a bit hungry, Zhu Qingwu immediately walked into the cafeteria first. A silent document followed behind. In the cafeteria. In front of the nearest window to the entrance of the cafeteria, a young and handsome young man was holding a frying spoon in his hand, lying in front of the window, staring blankly and muttering something incessantly. "Wanduzi, what's wrong with you in the system? Why can't you wake up yet? No need to guess. This is definitely something that a traveler would say. Fang Ping unexpectedly passed away 3 months ago and traveled to this world. Of course, his body also awakened its system. It's just that this system has already been successfully bound. Unfortunately, it has not been activated for a long time. It has been more than 3 months since crossing from Fang Ping to now. He waited until all the flowers had withered, but there was no movement at all. This once made Fang Ping feel very uncomfortable. The system is right in front of us. But I just won't let you use it. Sigh, I'm just hanging you. It's like that." Although the foreplay was well done, she was only 1 step away from the door when she was told that her aunt had arrived. That feeling can be imagined. Just as Fang Ping was lost in thought. But at this moment, a voice suddenly sounded in his ear. He was immediately awakened by a startle. "Hello, young man, I need to make a meal." Fang Ping looked up at the sound. "I don't know when." Standing in front of the window where he was responsible for cooking, there were 2 figures, one old and one young. Both of them were wearing the most ordinary training uniforms, without any military ranks. Especially the old man, he even smiled at him. At first glance, I don't know how many years of veteran oil he has been in the army. Take the plate handed over by the former casually. Fang Ping casually asked. "What would you like to eat?" Looking at the dazzling array of sumptuous dishes in front of me, Zhu Qingwu's stomach has already started to turn the tide. Being hungry is like being able to eat a cow. I want to taste whatever I see. Unconsciously, the food in his plate gradually piled up into a small hill. Stir-fried pork with green pepper, braised pork belly in brown sauce, ground chicken, hand-shredded chicken breast, and the prawns. And at this moment, Zhu Qingwu was completely unaware of this, continuously prompting Fang Ping to ask the former to add dishes to him. Finally, as his fingers pointed towards the white scorching shrimp in the corner, Fang Ping, who was responsible for serving him vegetables, couldn't resist. Bang! He slammed the spoon onto the table with force. The resulting disturbance was significant. It was a close call that didn't scare Zhu Qingwu enough. Zhu Qingwu's body was stimulated. Looking up, she's habitual desire to reprimand. But I noticed Fang Ping's somewhat indifferent eyes. It's time to realize that I'm a private soldier hiding my identity now. Zhu Qingwu decisively took back the words that had just reached his lips. Instead, he showed a puzzled expression. "Comrade, what can I do for you?" Chapter 2. Did the new recruit scold the general? Kneeling down. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Did the new recruit scold the general? Kneel down and beg for flowers to reward. What's up? Why are you pretending to be confused with me? Ignoring Zhu Qinwu's pleasing smile, Fang Ping remained calm and angry. The spoon in hand pointed to a sign on the nearby wall and said, "Do you see the sign written on it?" "I see. What's wrong?" Zhu Qinwu nodded in confusion. "I don't understand why the young man in front of me got so angry for no reason. Read him once for me. Save every drop of water, cherish every grain of food." Under some strange circumstances, Zhu Qinwu obediently read it once. Cherish every grain of food, is that how you cherish it? Judging from your age, you should also be an old man in the army. Why don't you even understand these rules and take less frequently? Can you talk about this big plate of food? Can you eat it? Fang Ping pointed to the plate filled with food. The spoon in hand doesn't clatter on the dining table. Just this plate of food. Don't say it's an old man. It would be enough for a half-sized guy who is currently having an amazing appetite to eat. This doesn't even count as a staple food. Fang Ping was able to endure until now and only burst out. It was entirely because of his good temper. Until then. Zhu Qinwu finally realized why the young man in front of him had a completely different attitude towards him. There is no trace of a good expression on her face. After realizing this issue, Zhu Qinwu rarely blushes when he is old. Shame on yourself. I didn't expect to spend most of my life in the army. I made such a low-level mistake in front of a younger generation today. Well, little brother, I'm sorry, but I can't help but see that today's food is good. Wait for Zhu Qinwu to finish speaking. Fang Ping didn't hesitate to interrupt it directly. Can't help it. Today you can't help it, tomorrow he can't help it. Why don't you just stop opening the cafeteria? We'll starve to death. Don't make excuses. What should I do if you say so much about the food? He also came from a military background in his previous life. What Fang Ping dislikes the most is the guy who wastes military resources. And today happens. Zhu Qinwu hit him at the muzzle of the gun. At this moment, the document accompanying Zhu Qinwu finally regained consciousness. Angered at the commander for being unable to come down from the stage. How much courage does this kid have? How to speak? The document stood up to scold, but was stopped by Zhu Qinwu's gaze. Although being scolded by a soldier was a bit unpleasant. But after all, it was he who wasted food first. Is it because of this that I have to move out of my position as commander and use force to dominate others? He is also too worthless as a commander. It's a bit petty. Well, little comrade, do you think this is good? My friend won't serve vegetables anymore. Let's both have this one, okay? Zhu Qinwu chuckled and said. Upon hearing this, Fang Ping's expression gradually eased. That's pretty good. As he spoke, he handed the plate in his hand to Zhu Qinwu. He is not the kind of person who is reasonable but not forgiving. As long as we don't waste food, it's easy to say anything. Thank you, little comrade. Seeing Fang Ping not fussing, Zhu Qinwu took the plate with a smile on his face. The documents on the side are here. Hurriedly reached out and took the plate back into his own hand. Ask the commander to help me cook. The document believes that it has not yet drifted to that place. At the very least, it is impossible to compare with a cook who fiercely confronts a commander. They picked up some mantu and prepared to leave. But it was stopped again by Fang Ping. You guys wait. Hear the sound coming from behind. The commander and the clerk exchanged a glance, both showing a hint of surprise. Is there anything else going on? When they turned around with a puzzled expression on their faces. But Fang Ping picked up an empty plate from the side. I casually scooped a large spoonful of white boiled shrimp inside and handed it to Zhu Qingguo. That plate should not be enough for the two of you to eat, take this. Zhu Qingguo stood in place. Looking at the tempting white shrimp on the plate in front of me, I was momentarily stunned. It was a long time before I regained my senses. Give a sweet date a stick. Good guy. I gave this young man a lesson today. After realizing this issue, Zhu Qingguo, feeling somewhat amused, picked up a plate filled with white scorched prawns. Inexplicably, he developed a slight interest in the straightforward cook in front of him. Carrying documents. Zhu Qingguo came to the nearby dining table and sat down, holding a plate. Just as he picked up a square and generous white scorching shrimp, he savored it with relish. I have already forgotten the previous events in my mind. The clerk sitting opposite him found it difficult to swallow the food on the plate in front of him. It's not been a year or two since I followed Zhu Qingguo. When did he get this kind of anger? Not to mention being a grand commander. Even if it's his document, no matter where he goes, others will give him a thin face. Today was just a little too much food. Unexpectedly, he was scolded by a small cook and couldn't come down. It's absolutely embarrassing. Commander, this kid is so annoying. Should I take care of him? The more I think, the more I hold my breath. The document couldn't help but speak softly. Zhu Qingguo peeled off the outer skin of the shrimp with both hands, and as soon as he stuffed it into his mouth, he heard the document about to teach Fang Ping a lesson. He turned his head and glanced at Fang Ping, who was idle not far away. While chewing on the shrimp meat in his mouth, he said calmly, "Teach a lesson. Why teach others a lesson? Is it wrong for them to make us cherish food?" But the document is about to speak. But the commander waved his hand at him. Go and ask that young man if he has eaten. If he hasn't, come and sit down together. What? Do you still want to sit together? What's wrong with you not being scolded enough by that guy all the time? Upon hearing that the commander was scolded and refused to speak, he even invited someone to come and sit down together. The eyes of the document suddenly widened. The whole person is foolish. What are you waiting for? Why don't you go quickly? Seeing the document buttocks sitting still on the stool, the commander couldn't help but speak up and urge. It's the commander, I'll go right away. Chapter 3. Isn't a cook soldier considered a soldier? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Isn't a cook soldier considered a soldier? Kneel down and beg for flowers to reward not long after. For white scorched shrimp have already entered Zhu Qingguo's stomach. Just as he was about to peel off the fifth one, Zhu Qingguo noticed that his document came over with the young man who had just cooked for him. Little comrades are here. Let's sit down and eat together. While Zhu Qingguo greeted Fang Ping to sit down. Take some time to stuff the freshly peeled shrimp meat into your mouth. Okay, it's fine right now. Let's sit and chat together. Fang Ping smiled and put down the plate in his hand, then sat down opposite Zhu Qingguo. Cooking soldiers are like this. It is only after the soldiers of other combat units have eaten that it is their time to eat. At this moment, the people in the cafeteria have almost left. There were only 3 people left, Fang Ping, sitting at a dining table eating. Young man, you shouldn't be willing to work as a cook soldier at such a young age. Do you have any thoughts of joining the combat force? Just as Fang Ping sat down, he heard Zhu Qingguo speak. He couldn't help but be taken aback. Subconsciously lifting his head, he reached out and pointed to himself unexpectedly. You say, me. Zhu Qingguo nodded with a smile on his face. Of course. The answer is very affirmative. After a brief interaction just now, based on years of experience, Zhu Qingguo feels that the young man in front of him is quite good. Besides being a bit serious, he should be a good soldier. That's also why Zhu Qingguo proposed to help Fang Ping change his organization. On the other side, the eyes of the clerk suddenly widened, and as he was eating, he narrowly escaped and was choked. Continuously coughing violently. My whole face turned red from being suppressed. Cough cough. Change staffing. How could the commander, who has always hated backdoor connections, take the initiative to offer to help a cook through the backdoor? Did you hallucinate? Is this guy really so good? The document looked at Fang Ping's handsome cheeks. Unbalanced in the heart. He couldn't figure out where his own commander, apart from being a bit good-looking, was interested in him. But Fang Ping's answer further surprised him. If you say that, it's boring. I'm not going. I'm doing pretty well in the cooking class, why change positions? Fang Ping shook his head and looked at Zhu Qingguo speechlessly, saying. Pop. Another sound. The chopsticks in the clerk's hand fell to the ground. Refused, refused. He stared blankly at the hint of disgust on Fang Ping's face. The whole person is going crazy. Does this kid know what he's talking about? The commander voluntarily offered to help you change the organization. What a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to go to combat troops. Did you just refuse like this? A flash of surprise also flashed in Zhu Qingguo's eyes. He first turned his head and glanced at the document beside him. When he noticed the former's surprised appearance, he couldn't help but furrow his brow slightly. Immediately, I took a deep breath again. With a hint of consideration in his eyes, he looked at Fang Ping across from him. Can you explain why? The commander spoke in a slightly low voice. I have lived in the army for most of my life, and it is the first time I have seen a soldier who does not seek progress. Although there is one unit in the army, there is no distinction between you, me, or him. But as long as there are people, there will be differences. On one hand, there is a cook who cooks with a kitchen knife and spoons all day long, and on the other hand, there are combat troops armed with guns to maintain national peace. A normal person knows how to choose. Reason. What other reason is there? What's wrong with the cooking soldiers? Aren't the soldiers in the cooking team a part of the army anymore? I'm not saying that you, an old comrade, have ideological problems. Whether it's cooking soldiers or reconnaissance soldiers, as long as they can contribute to the dragon country, they are good soldiers. It's strange that you're still an ordinary warrior now, and even with your mindset, you won't be able to get along with an officer in your lifetime. Note the abnormality in Zhu Qingguo's tone. Fang Ping felt a moment of silence. Capturing Zhu Qingguo is undoubtedly an education. It's coming to an end. He also took a moment to glance at Zhu Qingguo's ordinary training uniform shoulder badge. Strike the former without leaving any trace. I still look down on cooks. If you have the ability, don't eat the food made by cooks. The corners of the document's mouth twitched violently upon hearing the words. There is a problem with the mindset. This kid actually pointed at the commander's nose and said he won't be able to become an officer in his lifetime. You're probably a silly person. At this moment, the document is no longer daring to be raised. He was afraid to see the angry face of the commander. To avoid blaming him. Zhu Qingguo felt a daze before his eyes. Those who were also criticized by Fang Ping couldn't take it any longer. The entire brain is in a state of shutdown. I kept thinking back to what Fang Ping had said before. Is there a problem with one's thinking? My own thoughts are problematic. Actually, what the two of them are not clear about is. As a former military king, Fang Ping was fortunate enough to be selected to participate in a special unit in his past life. Specialized Blue Army. Mountain Eagle Brigade. This is a special unit set up specifically to counter hypothetical enemies of other armies. In other words, it is the enemy of all armies. It can be said that he has participated in military exercises of all sizes no less than 100 times. After prolonged battles and trials, firearms had already left a thick layer of calluses on his palms. This also makes him yearn for a peaceful life. And the military's cooking class was exactly what he wanted. This also explains why Fang Ping had previous experience in military operations. Why would they still settle in such a small cooking class? But little comrade, don't you want to contribute more to the dragon country? The combat troops can touch their guns at any time, which cannot be compared to the soldiers in the cooking class. Moreover, they can have the opportunity to fight alongside your comrades and participate in military confrontation exercises together. How meaningful it is after a long time. Zhu Qingwu finally regained his senses. Although being angrily scolded by Fang Ping just now made him a bit unhappy. But he still wanted to know what kind of thoughts led Fang Ping to refuse to join the combat forces. As for what kind of cooks and scouts contribute to the Dragon Kingdom, it's a ridiculous saying that they are good soldiers. He doesn't believe it at all. What? Touch the gun. I'm not interested. What kind of military confrontation exercise is there? It's even more boring. A bunch of old men are like playing house, chasing after me and chasing after you. It's not practical at all. Fang Ping waved his hand and a clear expression of disgust appeared on his face. It's okay not to mention this. He was fortunate enough to participate in a large-scale military exercise in the previous military region and become a proud logistics personnel. Dude, what are they? It's like two well-trained thugs fighting in a group fight. Waste time and energy. It's better to go back to the dormitory and lie down and have a good night's sleep with that spare time. Bang! This statement, like a thunderbolt on the flat ground, directly blinded Zhu Qingwu and his documents. The two of them had dull expressions. Staring blankly at the disdainful face across from Fang Ping, my whole brain was blank. The expression of the document is particularly evident. Distorted facial features and a fearful expression. Frequently turning his head to look at the commander sitting beside him, waiting for the arrival of the storm at any time. Military exercises are a play. Is this kid crazy? In front of the commander of the military district, he even said that military exercises are just a passing game. How much courage do you have? Chapter 4. Exercise is a family game, where players kneel down and beg for flowers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Exercise is like playing house, kneeling down and begging for flowers to reward. I can't bear to read the documents this time. A small cook repeatedly insults the army commander, which is no longer a simple offense, even if it is a direct expulsion from the military. Kid, you know he's. Shut up. Not waiting for the document to finish speaking. He was directly suppressed by the commander. At this moment, Fang Ping did not know how much trouble his recent words had caused him. Looking at the two people with strange expressions in front of me, he felt inexplicable for a moment. What's wrong with you two? This comrade doesn't look very well. I glanced at the document with a purple expression on my face. Fang Ping said with concern. It's nothing, maybe it's too hot. Let's not talk about it, little comrade. Why did you just say that military exercises are just a show? Can you tell me? Zhu Qingwu opened his mouth to inquire. Upon hearing these words, Fang Ping was speechless for a moment. I just casually said that this guy really dares to ask. Don't talk nonsense, I didn't say that. You're not very particular, just listen to it. Can such a big military exercise be just talking nonsense? What if someone hears it and it reaches the ears of the leader above? I won't be finished. Zhu Qingwu was speechless for a moment. What did you do earlier? Triggered his curiosity. Now you know you're scared. Cough, look at that. Since there's no one around now, just chat casually. Zhu Qingwu shamelessly said. Just chat casually. The black line of Fang Ping's brain. This old comrade is really not afraid of death. Dare to ask anything blindly. Watching Zhu Qingwu's eyes full of curiosity, Fang Ping looked around and immediately fixed his gaze on the nearby document. Cough. He instinctively coughed. The document had a puzzled expression on its face, and it was said carefully. What did he do? Also coughing. What does this mean? Opposite. After noticing Fang Ping's performance, Zhu Qingwu's eyes twitched. Good guy, it's also installed here. Helpless, he had no choice but to say something. Don't worry, he won't talk nonsense. Upon hearing this, Fang Ping finally relaxed. Okay, since that's the case, let's just chat casually. See here. If you don't understand the documents anymore. I have been serving Zhu Qingwu for so many years in vain. This kid is clearly looking down on him. I'm worried he won't be able to control his mouth. The document wants to explode, but my immediate superior is still present. Helpless. He took a deep breath and transformed his anger into deep depression. 7 rank officials in front of the Prime Minister's gate. He is at least a lieutenant level. Unexpectedly, he suffered a setback in front of a private soldier, and it's not enough to embarrass him when it comes to rumors. In fact, there is a reason why I say this. There are various modern warfare methods, and our Dragon Kingdom Army's military confrontation exercises are the same old routine every year. Will the enemy obediently confront our 2 armies when the real war comes? Warriors guarding the Dragon Kingdom, their contribution is beyond doubt. But their true enemies are still those foreign troops, not terrorists, nor mercenaries attempting to break into the border and disrupt the security of Dragon Country. What is the current development of the foreign army? Do you know about the new equipment of the foreign army? Are you clear about the new tactics? If our army continues to follow the same routine as before, and you hit me and I hit you, we will have no understanding of the new concepts and models of foreign armies. What will be waiting for us on the day when the battle approaches, simply burying our heads in hard training? Aren't the lessons we learned from the isolationism of decades ago enough? Fang Ping sat at the dining table chatting confidently. When mentioning my own army, I unconsciously showed a look of hatred towards it. This statement. Zhu Qingwu became more and more frightened as he listened. The idea of this little comrade in front of him was simply beyond his expectations. Surprisingly, even who their enemy is aware of. Shouldn't these things be what leaders and officers should think about? But I think the Blue Army has performed very well this year, especially during the beheading operation where even the Red Army commander was killed. Zhu Qingwu still harbors illusions in his heart. After all, the Longya Special Operations Brigade in the Blue Army has made significant progress under his leadership. He is an outstanding figure in the entire Central China military region. Of course the Longya Special Battle Brigade is good, but counting the 50-100-year history of the Dragon Kingdom, which national war was decided by an inconspicuous small unit. Is it difficult? The vast Dragon Kingdom has placed all its hopes on a small special forces brigade in the future battlefield. Fang Ping said disdainfully. Zhu Qingwu was confused. Because Fang Ping's words completely penetrated his weakness. Yes, does the vast Dragon Kingdom rely solely on small special forces brigades? It is imaginable. On the near-future battlefield, his soldiers faced weapons and equipment that they were completely unfamiliar with. And various unfamiliar tactical tactics and tactics. What a terrifying scene that will be. At this moment of thought, Zhu Qingwu felt an inexplicable sense of urgency in his heart. No way. We cannot sit idly by. He suddenly stood up and took a deep look at the square across from him. In the other person's puzzled gaze. Turn around straight and leave. Sigh. I haven't finished speaking yet, why are you running? Fang Ping quickly stood up and said. As a patriotic soldier carrying countless advanced combat concepts from his past life, he saw that these compatriots were still using the most backward training mode, but he couldn't say it himself. That kind of frustration can be imagined. I finally met someone today who was willing to listen to his rambling. I thought I could finally speak freely today. Unexpectedly, halfway through the conversation, the person ran away. I just remembered that it's almost time for lunch break. Our leader is checking closely, so I need to go back quickly and chat when I have time. The words have just finished. Zhu Qingwu hurriedly left the cafeteria with his documents and walked out of the platoon, then rode in a military vehicle non-stop towards the headquarters of the military region. Looking at the distant back of the two, Fang Ping couldn't help but curl his lips. Damn it, do you know you're in a hurry now? Before, I was so calm and talked confidently, thinking that no one cared about your leader. Thinking that there was still a lot of work to be done in the kitchen, Fang Ping also turned around and walked towards the kitchen, holding his used plate. But at this moment, a very abrupt voice suddenly rang out in his mind. Ding dong, the conditions have been met, and the military merit system has been successfully activated. The beginner gift package has been successfully distributed to the system space. Please check it carefully, host. System. Fang Ping was stunned for a moment. Suddenly stopped walking. There was a hint of surprise in his eyes as he stood still. Chapter 5. Military Reform Approaches, Comprehensive Reform. Kneel down. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Military Reform Approaches, Comprehensive Reform. Kneel down and beg for flowers to reward Central China Military Region, Headquarters. Xiao Lu, is our Dragon Kingdom army really lagging behind? After returning from the company to the headquarters, Zhu Qingwu sat in his own office, his brows quietly furrowing. The clerk named Xiao Lu was hesitant to answer when he heard these words. On the way back, he was also constantly pondering this question in his mind. I haven't discovered it yet. But after Fang Ping's teasing, a chill couldn't help but surge in his heart. Because the more he pondered, the more he felt the profound meaning behind the words he had just heard in the cafeteria. This question is difficult for him to answer. As a lieutenant general in the Dragon Kingdom, the commander can freely evaluate the current situation of the Dragon Kingdom army. He can't do it. One is not good. Waiting for his fate may be very heavy. It is very likely that it is a consequence that he cannot bear. Report to commander, I'm sorry. Xiao Lu's responsibility is to take care of your daily life. As for such a complex issue, it still requires the leader's attention. Xiao Lu stood at attention and said respectfully. Upon hearing this, Zhu Qingwu rarely looked up at Xiao Lu. When he noticed his documents standing in place like a wooden stake, without looking at them, I couldn't help feeling a bit dumbfounded in my heart. When did you learn the bureaucratic style? He chuckled and shook his head, saying. Regarding this, Xiao Lu just scratched his head with embarrassment. Dare not express opinions. Alright, notify leaders at all levels to rush to the headquarters in half an hour. I have something to tell them. The commander's expression returned to calm once again. A calm and majestic aura emanated faintly from its surface. Yes, commander. Xiao Lu's expression immediately became serious. Quickly turned around and walked out of the office, preparing to notify the leaders at all levels below. At this moment, he had already anticipated. There may be major events happening in the upcoming Central China Military Region. 1 hour later. Located on the first floor of the headquarters, in the combat conference room. Numerous officers dressed in regular uniforms were dispersed in 2 rows, with solemn expressions. Quietly waiting for a slightly slender figure to appear outside the conference room. Commander. With a swoosh. Everyone immediately stood up and saluted the old man who walked in from the door. The body is straight and the sound is like a bell. Everyone sit down. Zhu Qingguo arrived at the main seat of the conference room and greeted everyone, and he was the first to sit down. The other officers present saw this and quickly sat down again. The spine is becoming increasingly straight. His eyes were filled with curiosity. It has only been less than 2 days since the end of the Red-Blue confrontation military exercise. At this moment, the commander suddenly summoned them for what exactly? Everyone remained silent. Sitting in the same spot without looking askance, quietly waiting for the commander's instructions. The air at the scene suddenly became stagnant. In a moment, the atmosphere suddenly became suppressed. Zhu Qingguo did not make these people wait too long. Looking at the confusion in the expressions of these people in front of me, he spoke slowly. A slightly low voice echoed through the entire conference room. Everyone, do you have any opinions on this Red and Blue Army confrontation exercise? As soon as they spoke, a hint of surprise flashed in everyone's eyes. Red-Blue confrontation military exercise. Didn't we just finish the summary meeting? Why did you suddenly ask this question again? In a moment. The officers present here are somewhat uncertain about the thoughts of their immediate superiors. Gao Shun, come on. Zhu Qingguo looked at a middle-aged man with a resolute expression, who was second in his right hand, and said. Since no one is speaking, let the leader of Longya Brigade, who made outstanding contributions in this Red-Blue confrontation exercise, speak up. Gao Shun couldn't help but feel bitter when he heard the commander's name calling him. Just now he was thinking about what the commander meant by saying this sentence. Unexpectedly, before he could figure it out, he was called out by the commander first. Report, I think the Longya Special Operations Brigade still needs more training. From this exercise, it can be seen that the soldiers of the Longya Special Operations Brigade lack emergency response measures. Gao Shun quickly stood up with a strong and powerful tone. There was no sign of panic at all. It seems like I'm already prepared. When the officers in the conference room heard these words, they all cast their bets on Gao Shun with an expression of, you take it for yourself. Everyone knows. What the commander hates the most is this kind of all-encompassing language. 1 is 1, 2 is 2. Need more refinement. This statement applies to any service. May I ask which warrior dares to step forward and say that they are already very strong and do not need to hone? Even the king of war dare not say such words. Faced with the pitiful gaze of his colleagues, Gao Shun inwardly expressed his grievances. Can he be blamed for this? I didn't have any psychological preparation when I came here. Ask him what he thinks about military exercises when he comes up. What opinion can he have? We can only point out the shortcomings discovered during this military exercise. Faced with sudden emergency situations, his soldiers did lack adaptability. This is beyond doubt. As Gao Shun's words fell, the scene suddenly became quiet. Just when everyone thought that Gao Shun would immediately attract criticism from the commander, a rare scene occurred. Amidst the surprised gazes of everyone, Zhu Qingguo not only did not criticize Gao Shun. Instead, he showed a thoughtful expression. Lack of adaptability. It seems that what that kid said doesn't make any sense. Zhu Qingguo murmured to himself in his heart. The reform within the army seems to be imperative. After thinking about this point clearly, he immediately looked up. Gao Shun was right. The soldiers have been at ease for too long and lack adaptability. The system in the military really needs to be changed. Sigh. Changing the military system. Military reform. The officers present were stunned by Zhu Qingguo's words. Isn't it to criticize Gao Shun? How could you just talk about changing the military system? Gao Shun is also a bit dumbfounded. I thought I would be harshly criticized by the commander. I never thought about it. The willows are dark and the flowers are bright. Surprisingly, he received the commander's appreciation. What's going on here? Has the commander changed his temperament? Gao Shun's slightly heavy heart unconsciously relaxed. What he doesn't know is, the reason for such a significant change in the commander is entirely due to following the advice of a private soldier from the cooking class. Otherwise, his batch today is definitely unavoidable. Chapter 6. You are really lenient in your management. Kneeling down to beg for flowers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. You are really lenient in your management. Kneel down and beg for flowers as a reward at the same time. A.Cho, who's talking about me? The Mountain Eagle Brigade has a series of kitchen and kitchen staff. Fang Ping, who had eaten, was absent-mindedly stomping on the pork ribs in the kitchen. In front of him was a pile of pork ribs piled up like a small mountain. This is his task this afternoon. Prepare for stewing pork ribs with potatoes at night. System, is there artificial intelligence? Why do you suddenly wake up at this time? Fang Ping secretly communicated with the system through his thoughts and said. From just now until now. There has always been a problem troubling him. It's hard to imagine a system that hasn't responded for over 3 months suddenly awakening today. This surprised him a bit. Quiet. My mind is quiet. There is no prompt sound from the system. Obviously, this is a system without artificial intelligence. Seeing this, Fang Ping breathed a rare sigh of relief. It's okay. It's good without artificial intelligence. Being stared at by a stranger all day, with no privacy at all. Even artificial intelligence still makes him somewhat unable to accept it. After understanding this crucial point. Next is the highlight. System, claim the beginner gift pack. Fang Ping spoke up. He clearly remembers that the system just prompted him to reward him with a newbie gift package. The words have just finished. The familiar system prompt sounded in his ear again. Ding dong, the gift package has been successfully received. Congratulations to the host for successfully obtaining the top-level military king physique. Top-tier soldier king constitution, having it allows you to stand at the pinnacle of human physical fitness in this world. The system prompt sound just dropped. A huge warm current suddenly emerged from his body and began to rapidly penetrate into any corner of his body, making each of his cells resilient enough. Click, click. Even a faint sound could be heard from within Fang Ping's ear. That is the sound of bones twisting slightly. Under the transformation of this special energy, the bones inside Fang Ping's body become more resilient and perfect. In a short moment. As the warm flow inside the body disappears, the physical transformation has finally been completed. Accompanying it was an extremely powerful force rising from his heart. Fang Ping instinctively swung the bone-chopping knife in his hand with force. Bang! A loud muffled noise echoed through the kitchen. Almost alarmed the entire cooking staff. Sleeping trough, Fang Ping, what are you doing, kid? Why is there so much commotion? The voice of class monitor Pan Cheng came from behind. No, there's no class monitor, the cutting board is rotten. Fang Ping said in a fawning tone. There was a strange and imperceptible tone in the voice. Didn't hurt anyone, did you? No, there's no class monitor. Oh, that's enough. If the cutting board is broken, just replace it. Be careful. The rear squad leader once again instructed. After hearing that he had not injured anyone, he stopped caring. The figure who had already stood up sat down again. Under such high-intensity work, damage to kitchen utensils is inevitable. Their cooking team is tasked with the entire platoon of soldiers eating. Time is tight, tasks are heavy. He still has work to do, so he doesn't waste time. The class monitor buried his head and picked up the task in his hand again, preparing to shred the potatoes. What he didn't notice was, At this moment, Fang Ping, with his back to him, stared big with two eyes. My gaze lingered in front of the chopping board that had been split into two pieces. His expression was full of amazement. The expression is very exaggerated. After a long time, he took a slow breath. Mother, this military king's physique is a bit abnormal. In a typical hotel kitchen, cutting boards are the most durable. Even if it takes 10 or 8 years, there is no problem. But now, not only was the chopping board split in half by him. Along with the stainless steel tabletop below, a clear crack was also cut out. Glancing at the scrapped bone chopping machete in hand, Fang Ping couldn't help but shudder. He is very clear. The power possessed by this body now far exceeds the peak period of previous special forces. 2 or 3 more days passed like this. This day, as usual, Fang Ping finished processing the ingredients for lunch. Step out of the kitchen and rest on the open space behind the cafeteria. Have all the ribs been processed? The voice of class monitor Pan Cheng suddenly rang out. Fang Ping looked up. Seeing the class monitor squatting in the corner, with a cigarette between his index finger, he looked at him with a smile. The class monitor has already been processed. Fang Ping smiled and squatted down beside Pan Cheng. So fast, you kid is really amazing. Pan Cheng said unexpectedly. Recently, he has noticed that this kid's speed is getting faster and faster. A platoon of over 100 people. It usually takes at least 3 to 4 hours to process the ingredients needed by so many people. Now this kid has completed it in just 2 hours. It's like Temo cheating. Practice makes perfect, practice makes perfect. Fang Ping smiled and said in a daze, ignoring the curiosity on the face of the class monitor. Can the system be said casually? If it weren't for the military king's physique, his speed wouldn't have been so fast. You kid. Pan Cheng shook his head in silence. Seeing Fang Ping unwilling to chat much, he casually took out a cigarette from his pocket and handed it to Fang Ping. Do you smoke? Thank you, class monitor. Fang Ping took it casually. One big and one small, 2 new and old soldiers, Yuzi, hid behind the cafeteria and began to smoke. I don't know what's going on lately. I heard that the military is suddenly going through a restructuring, which has led to the crazy training of the platoon and the increase in appetite. Sometimes the food prepared in the cafeteria is not enough. Pan Cheng suddenly spoke again. Think back on the changes of the company soldiers these days. I feel very puzzled in my heart. The military has been doing well these years. Why do you suddenly think about reform? The speaker has no intention, the listener has intention. Military reform. Fang Ping was taken aback. At the same time as the accident, I also admire the sharp sense of smell of the military district leaders in my heart. It seems that there are still many big shots in the military district. I only discovered problems in the military by relying on advanced concepts from my past life. The leaders above, relying entirely on their keen sense of smell, first proposed the concept and determination to carry out military reform. Military reform. It's a good thing. Fang Ping said in agreement. At this moment, he is not clear that the reason why there is such determination above is entirely due to his reasons. Good news. What good news? Pan Cheng, holding a cigarette in his hand, looked at Fang Ping unexpectedly and said. Isn't that a good thing? The Dragon Kingdom army has been in peace for too long, and training exercises have completely deviated from actual combat. Everything has been carried out according to the training outline. This military reform is not a good thing. If you ask me, during this military reform, the leaders above will definitely form a new team and boldly break all existing outdated and backward systems. Fang Ping smoked and said confidently. With the experience brought by his past life, he is very clear. Once the leaders above decide to carry out military reform, it is definitely not a small matter. It is very likely to establish a target or hypothetical enemy for the existing army. The purpose of sounding the alarm bell has been achieved. After all, history always repeats itself. What? Pan Cheng casually threw his cigarette butt onto the ground and vigorously stamped it out. That gaze was as if looking at a madman. You're afraid you've gone crazy due to heartbreak, isn't that what you're worried about? Also form a new team. If you finish smoking, hurry up and come back to work with me. A new recruit, still a cook, and we discussed big topics like military reform here. You're afraid you're going to heaven. Do you really think you're the army commander? Fang Ping sat in place, watching the class monitor leave behind, with a helpless expression on his face. Oh, another master who doesn't listen to him finish speaking. Class monitor, I'm coming right now. Fang Ping responded, hurriedly extinguished the cigarette butt and followed into the kitchen. It's almost lunchtime, and there's plenty he's busy with. Chapter 7. Building a Professional Blue Army. Kneeling for Flowers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Building a Professional Blue Army, Kneeling for Flowers and Rewards. 2 more days have passed. It has been almost a week since Zhu Qingguo and Fang Ping met. After this period of fermentation, the topic of military reform has spread to the entire Central China military region. The military reform is in full swing. Within the headquarters of the military region and the office of the army commander. A quiet room. Zhu Qingguo looked lost in thought. In front of his desk were several documents. It's written on it. On the necessity of establishing a professional blue army and its future development direction, wait for some military research topics. Professional Blue Army. It is the designation of a new army that Zhu Qingguo decided to form after listening to Fang Ping's suggestion. He only made some difficulties in selecting the direction of personnel to form this unit. Xiao Lu, how would you select talents if you were asked to form a brand new army? After pondering for a long time, Zhu Qingguo finally spoke up. Report to the leader, I don't know. Xiao Lu's answer was very straightforward. Until now, he never imagined that his own commander would have such determination. I just listened to the advice of a cook. We need to train a new army. The human and material resources involved in this, as well as the resource allocation, are not a small amount at all. Zhu Qingguo frowned slightly. It seems like I already had a premonition that my documents were unreliable. He was also not prepared to hear any useful advice from the other party. But the selection of specialized blue army talents ultimately needs to be solved. The room became silent again. At this moment, Xiao Lu noticed a worried expression on his commanding officer's brow. A hint of hesitation flashed in my eyes. Commander, do you want to ask that cook again? After all, this question was raised by him. He said cautiously. Instantly, Zhu Qingguo's eyes lit up. Yeah. Why didn't he think of it? Since this notice was raised by that young comrade, he may have a solution to this problem. Well done, Xiao Lu. I didn't expect your brain to be very useful sometimes. Zhu Qingguo gave effective suggestions for his own documents and was not stingy with his praise. He, no way, I just casually said it. Xiao Lu scratched his head with a shy expression on his face. Regarding this, Zhu Qingguo just smiled and didn't speak. Since I have made a decision in my heart. He is not a person who procrastinates. Immediately instructed Xiao Lu to prepare a carriage, and the two of them headed towards the cafeteria of the 1st platoon of the Mountain Eagle Brigade. Sleeping trough, did that kid really hit the nail on the head? At the same time, at the entrance of the continuous cafeteria, Class Monitor Pan Cheng looked at the notice board with the exclusive seal of the headquarters printed on it. The whole person is foolish. Considering that the soldiers have been in peacetime for a long time and their training has become rigid and detached from practical combat purposes, after research by the headquarters, a new unit will soon be formed to serve as a hypothetical enemy for all armies in the entire military region, as close as possible to actual combat, and to combat some lazy and backward corrupt practices in the troops. I hope all military officers and soldiers can take it seriously. At the end of the announcement, there is also the signature of the Commander-in-Chief of the Army. Zhu Qingguo. See here. Pan Cheng's first reaction was that he had misread. After repeated confirmation, a fact that he had to believe was right in front of him. It's true. All that kid Fang Ping said to him behind the cafeteria before was true. Turtle's son, this kid is a genius. Pan Cheng couldn't help but sigh. Who could have thought of a new recruit who had just been sent to the cooking class for a month, with such forward thinking and sense of smell? Unexpectedly, it coincides with the ideas of the big leaders in the headquarters. No, this kid is just a military genius. If he's left in the kitchen, he'll definitely be buried. I need to talk to the platoon leader and transfer this kid to another place. At least it must be a combat team. In addition to being excited, Pan Cheng made a decision in his heart regarding the issue of Fang Ping staying in the cooking class. Turn around and run out of the cafeteria, heading to the campsite to search for a platoon leader. A new recruit who can think of being with the big shots at the headquarters. This is such a precious talent. We can't just waste it like this. Pan Cheng has just left. The back kitchen of the back foot cafeteria once again welcomed two unwelcome guests. At this moment, there is still half an hour left until the start of dinner. The huge cafeteria is empty. Commander, are we coming too early now? Xiaolu suddenly said cautiously. Pop. Zhu Qingguo suddenly stopped in his tracks. The alarm bell rang in my heart immediately. Yeah. Busy and rushing to solve the problem. But I forgot the most important point. This is a military unit, and everything has strict requirements. Even including when to eat and when to sleep, there is a clear time. In this way, his identity is likely to be exposed. Go out first, wait before coming in. Zhu Qingguo sighed and turned to prepare to leave the cafeteria. It doesn't matter if one's identity is exposed. But once the army commander of the Central China military region is exposed, I'm afraid I won't be able to see what I want to see again in the future. Isn't it also because of the premise of keeping my identity confidential that I unexpectedly learned about the formation of this specialized Blue Army team from some young comrade? If I had appeared as a commander, I'm afraid I wouldn't have heard such a blasphemy in military exercises. If that's the case, isn't it another way of destroying this country? Well, Commander, it seems like there's not enough time. At this moment, behind me came a slightly nervous voice from Xiaolu. Is it too late? Zhu Qingguo's expression was taken aback. How could it be too late? Looking back, his eyelids twitched slightly. I only saw that at some point, the door from the cafeteria to the kitchen had already opened. Cooks dressed in white aprons walked out one by one, pushing small carts filled with food insulation boxes. Among them, Fang Ping's familiar figure, which appeared slightly youthful, stood out prominently. Cluck. Zhu Qingguo's heart skipped a beat. The heart felt as if it had been forcefully squeezed by someone. Unfortunately, at this moment, Fang Ping seems to have just discovered them. Ah. It's you two who came quite early, it's not yet time for dinner. Wanduzi. It seems that the identity of the commander may be exposed today. At this moment, standing on the side, Xiaolu was too nervous to speak. Ah, it seems like we did come early. How about we come back later? Zhu Qingguo smiled and said. The surface showed a very calm look. Despite this, he was already prepared in his heart for the opponent to share the cards equally. Alright, stop pretending. Did you sneak out? I understand. It must be your leader who punished you for not having breakfast. You're so hungry you can't bear it anymore. Fang Ping chuckled and said. A look on my face that I understand. Punishing troops is a common occurrence. This is not the first time he has encountered a situation like today. Almost every few days, a few people sneak over to eat. Sigh. Zhu Qingwu couldn't help but be stunned when he heard these words. Is this misunderstood? Well, actually not at all. It's just that I happen to be resting today. If I have nothing to do, I'll come over first. Zhu Qingwu chuckled and said. Just continue speaking according to Fang Ping's words. Alright, wait until I finish setting up these dishes before chatting. Fang Ping greeted Zhu Qingwu and began unloading the dishes from the small cart, then placing them one by one into the insulated pool filled with hot water. He was also too lazy to expose Zhu Qingwu's clumsy excuses. I've seen too many veterans like you before, it's not very interesting to be too calculating. It won't be long. Fang Ping has already been busy. After serving 2 full plates of food for Zhu Qingwu and his companions. Take advantage of your busy schedule to take time off. The 3 of them sat down again at a dining table in the corner of the cafeteria. Tell me, what mistakes did you 2 make again? Speaking up makes me happy. Fang Ping sat down in front of Zhu Qingwu. I've been tired all morning, and now I can finally take a break. I have to feed the soldiers later. Otherwise, a pig in the army is covered in muscles. The workload is really too heavy. No, can't you be more polite when I say it? What do we mean we made another mistake and even said it to make you happy? Can't we come over and have a good meal? Xiao Lu said with a defiant expression. Why does this kid owe so much? The good mood of being praised by the commander all morning was ruined by one sentence. Okay, what's the point of making a joke about it, little comrade? Zhu Qingwu spoke up to dissuade. I saw that my own commander had already spoken. Xiao Lu reluctantly closed his mouth, his heart filled with resentment from the other party. Ignoring the grievances of one's own family like a child's document. Zhu Qingwu said to the other party with a smile on his face. Don't worry, my friend has such a temper. Fang Ping waved his hand to indicate that he had not taken it to heart at all. Soldiers are like this. Quick-tempered and straightforward in speech. If he really cares, then he must be angry to death. But next, Zhu Qingwu's words left him speechless. That little comrade, the military reform you mentioned last time was quite interesting. Can you tell us more about it? When Fang Ping heard this, he couldn't help roast crazily. Nima, is it quite interesting? A veteran oilseed who seems to have nothing to do with paying attention to national affairs at the top of the military headquarters, you may really see freedom of speech as your Shangfang sword. Chapter 8. Let the general help the kitchen. Kneeling to beg for flowers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Let the general help the kitchen. Kneel down and beg for flowers to reward. Didn't I say you're an old comrade? Have you always been so idle? On the dining table in the cafeteria. Fang Ping murmured in silence about Zhu Qingwu in the opposite direction. Just talked casually last time, after all, he has been holding it for too long and wants to find someone to chat with. Come back this time. Do you really think he is very free in the army? This is not just idle, it's also idle. Let's just talk about our daily routine. Zhu Qingwu continued to insist. There's no way. The specialized Blue Army has been established and the notice has been sent out. The entire military district is waiting to see him joke. It's just a matter of personnel selection. At this critical moment, there should be no mistakes at all. Do you really want to hear it? Fang Ping looked at Zhu Qingwu with a slanted gaze, and a faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. You can listen. But we can't let him talk for nothing. Only when there is a sacrifice can there be a gain, and this principle can be applied anywhere. Zhu Qingguo noticed Fang Ping's malicious smile. An inexplicable strong premonition emerged in my heart. But when I think of the disgusting faces of other officers and colleagues in the military region waiting to see him joke. Zhu Qingguo gritted his teeth and nodded. I really want to hear it. See this situation. The smile on Fang Ping's face became even more brilliant. This is easy to handle. Take your plates and come with me. As he spoke, he turned and walked towards the direction of the kitchen. This scene left Zhu Qingguo and Xiao Lu feeling somewhat puzzled. Commander, this is. Xiao Lu's tone was somewhat puzzled. Don't worry, just follow along. Zhu Qingguo picked up the half-eaten plate in front of him and obediently followed behind Fang Ping. A group of 3 walked through the back door of the cafeteria under the guidance of Fang Ping. Arrived in the kitchen of the cooking class. The room is very spacious. Fang Ping and the 2 of them arrived at a corner of the kitchen. The ground here is piled up with small hills of potatoes. Seeing this scene, Xiao Lu showed a bewildered expression on his face. Isn't this a potato? What did this guy bring them here for? Is it difficult? Are you still planning to have them peel potatoes for him? Xiao Lu had an absurd idea in his heart. What are you waiting for? Hurry up. Your task today is to peel all these potatoes before dinner. Fang Ping's voice suddenly sounded. Bang! Xiao Lu didn't stand up properly and almost spilled the food on the plate on the ground. Are you really peeling potatoes? I simply didn't take him seriously as a second lieutenant. Of course, this is not the most important thing yet. What startled Xiao Lu was that he was not only the second lieutenant, but also the commanding army commander who wanted to peel potatoes. Xiao Lu was about to refuse. Suddenly, the familiar voice of the commander rang in his ear. That little comrade, let's not talk about this for now. You just agreed to tell us about military reform, right? Pop. A crisp sound. Xiao Lu let go of his hand. The plate in my hand fell completely to the ground. The food inside was scattered everywhere. But he didn't react at all to this. Staring blankly at his own commander. The entire brain is blank. Agreed. The commander actually promised to peel potatoes for this guy. Am I crazy? Of course, as long as you peel all these potatoes, I'll. Fang Ping's words were not finished. The sudden movement of the plate landing interrupted his next conversation. Looking at the food scattered all over the ground. His eyebrows immediately furrowed. Xiao Lu, what are you doing? Why don't you pick it up quickly? Zhu Qingguo let out a low roar. It's all burning with anger. This little Lu has no vision at all. Don't you know that people hate people who waste food the most? I'll pick it up now, I'll pack it up right away. Xiao Lu quickly squatted down. Hurry up the food on the ground and put it on your own plate. Not a single one fell behind. I haven't even let go of a single peanut. Eat it all immediately. Zhu Qingguo frowned and ordered. Xiao Lu remained silent and grabbed the food from the plate before stuffing it into his mouth. See here. Fang Ping's face gradually softened a lot. All right, stop eating. Didn't you see that it's all mud on top? Xiao Lu hesitated when he heard this. I didn't know who to listen to for a moment. All right, didn't you hear the little comrade say, there's no need to eat? Zhu Qingguo is not the one to be reckoned with. Mainly worried about Fang Ping getting angry. If someone is unhappy and doesn't explain it to them, wouldn't it be a failure? You know, in professional terms, the Blue Army is still an empty shell to this day. Thank you, sir. Well, thank you to this comrade. Under the stirring mood, Xiao Lu almost slipped his tongue. Fortunately, Zhu Qingguo gave him a glare before he realized it. The other person expressed their gratitude from the bottom of their heart. If it's not a square opening. I'm afraid he really needs to eat this plate of mud into his stomach today. Alright, don't thank me. What you're wasting is not my food, it's the country's. Fang Ping waved his hand and said nonchalantly. Regarding this, Xiao Lu could only smile casually, to conceal one's embarrassment. But the next sentence from Fang Ping. But it startled Zhu Qingguo, who almost thought he had exposed his secrets. Speaking of this old comrade, your identity is not simple. This comrade is so afraid of you. But when he calms down. Zhu Cheng's armed face showed a hint of helplessness. I was scared by you last time, which made him and I dare not waste any food in front of you. If we were to be scolded by you again, it would be too unworthy and embarrassing. Upon hearing this, Fang Ping's doubts dissipated in his eyes. I'm sorry, it turned out to be my fault. The main reason is that I don't want to see people who waste food. The resources in the army are hard won, and the rivers and mountains of the Dragon Kingdom were fought down by those old seniors who were hungry back then. He explained with a smile. Zhu Qingguo suddenly felt a sense of solemnity in his heart. I didn't expect that the young man in front of me not only had such extraordinary foresight in military affairs. Even their quality far exceeds that of ordinary people. Xiao Lu on the side couldn't help but show a look of shame upon hearing these words. The atmosphere in the kitchen suddenly became quiet. Alright, come on, stop talking about these useless things. I've solved the problem with lunch, and these potatoes are still needed tonight. Don't be lazy, hurry up and peel the potatoes for me. Fang Ping said jokingly. The awkwardness in the air was immediately dispelled. The atmosphere immediately became lively. Okay, give me a peeler, I'll do it right away. By the way, being idle is also being idle. While we peel the skin, you can tell us about the military reform. Zhu Qingguo took the lead and ordered a peeler from Fang Ping, ready to dry it. Xiao Lu also came from behind and took the lead. Okay, then I'll tell you about it. Because all the people in the cooking class ran to the front to cook for the soldiers. The entire kitchen is empty. Only Fang Ping and the coolies he forcibly pulled over were left, each with a small stool, taking off his coat for the potatoes in front of him, which looked like a small mountain. Chapter 9. Who is the commander of a military region? Kneel down. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Who is the commander of a military region? Kneeling and begging for a reward in the back kitchen of the cafeteria. At this moment, an extremely eerie scene appeared. A seemingly elderly man is peeling a pile of potatoes in front of him. A young man wrapped in an apron sat beside him chatting about the mountains. It's like being known by people outside. Absolutely make your eyes explode. When did the Grand Army Commander become so humble? Unexpectedly reduced to the point of having to do odd jobs in the kitchen. The most crucial thing is. The cook, who should have been working, sat quietly on the side like a spectator. It's very leisurely. Let me tell you, military reform is already imperative. Have you not received any news? The leaders in the higher-level command have issued a notice that the military is about to undergo major changes and a new specialized Blue Army unit has been established. Specially allowing them to simulate foreign armies as hypothetical enemies of the entire military region, to stimulate the soldiers' innate blood. Fang Ping spoke confidently. Just as he was about to say something, Zhu Qingguo stopped his movements and interrupted him. Comrade Fang Ping, don't say so much for now. I'm curious about where you heard about these things and how it feels like you know everything, as if you've experienced them firsthand. He understands everything that Fang Ping said. Isn't it just that the other party woke him up? Otherwise, how could military reform be put on the agenda so quickly? Fang Ping's eyes rolled and he approached Zhu Qingguo with a mysterious expression. Old Zhu, this matter is not something that cannot be said. But you must keep it a secret, and besides you too, you must never mention it to anyone else. At the end, Fang Ping's gaze left no trace as he glanced at Xiao Lu beside him. Zhu Qingwu was taken aback. Does this kid really have any undisclosed secrets? He quickly patted his chest and promised. Don't worry, Xiaofang. I will never tell the second person, do you think so, Xiao Lu? By the way, I also reminded my own clerk Xiao Lu. Right, I won't say it. Xiao Lu quickly assured. Fang Ping waved to the two of them, gesturing for them to come in ear. Actually, I have been studying this topic for many years. Zhu Qingwu and his clerk Xiao Lu exchanged glances with each other. They all saw the dullness in the other person's eyes. Years of research. Fang Ping saw the two of them stunned and immediately became excited. To be honest with you, I have been studying the topic of how to deal with future wars for many years. The direction of military reform, the future direction of war, and diversified warfare are all within my research scope. That's why I have a clearer understanding of these things. Zhu Qingwu heard that Fang Ping was still continuing to argue with him. The whole person is crazy. Are you a private soldier for many years? According to this statement, why don't you say that you started simulating sandbox exercises from your mother's womb? It's the first time I've heard someone fabricate such insincere stories in front of him. In a moment, Zhu Qingwu didn't know whether to cry or laugh. He quickly raised his hand to signal. All right, Xiaofang, I'll continue peeling potatoes. Don't talk to me about these useless things anymore. I can't even make up lies. Just tell me, if the military really wants to create that specialized blue army, what should be done about talent selection? Is it difficult to extract the elderly from other units? I'm worried about going back to the old path in this case, but if we select new recruits, the cycle is too long and we won't be able to see any results in the short term. Fang Ping. Including past life experiences. He has really studied for many years. These people still don't believe it. Okay, you two continue to peel potatoes. Let me tell you about the issue of talent selection. Hey, that's right. Tell me something useful. Zhu Qingwu's expression of deep admiration made Fang Ping speechless for a moment. After a brief incubation, Fang Ping spoke again. Actually, this talent selection is also simple. Since the military district wants to innovate and form a brand new army, of course it needs to select new personnel, which is beyond doubt. After just a few words, Zhu Qingwu couldn't help but speak up. However, training new recruits takes time. If superiors want to test the necessity of this team's existence, of course, they need to see results in the shortest possible time. Otherwise, what else can we talk about? He had considered these issues before coming. But the new recruits are too immature. Veterans are also limited by the existing system. I am simply unable to shoulder the heavy responsibility of leading the reform of the entire army. Fang Ping glanced at Zhu Qingwu and said with a reproachful expression. You said you're in a hurry, making it seem like you're the commander of a military district. I haven't finished speaking yet. You keep going. Zhu Qingwu dared not speak anymore. Being fiercely scolded by Fang Ping, he also knew that he was a bit anxious. Don't interrupt, I won't talk to you about this anymore after interrupting. Fang Ping anxiously reminded the former. Seeing Zhu Qingwu nodding like pounding garlic. That's how I feel at ease. Alright, actually things are not as complicated as you imagine. I believe those senior officers in the command headquarters I mentioned have already thought of it. After all, there is no shortage of talent in the army. Fang Ping praised him and made Zhu Qingwu's blush. If it's really like what you said, there's no need to personally come over and peel potatoes for you. But soon, such emotions were immediately forgotten by Zhu Qingwu, as Fang Ping had already started discussing solutions for talent selection. It's simple, it's all said to be a military reform, mainly aimed at future wars. So the military should focus on various talents with advanced concepts. We shouldn't rely solely on brute force to solve problems like the old saying goes. What kind of psychology PhD, researcher at the Foreign Military Research Institute, these talents should be important backbone members of this army. Only when leaders and officers have advanced concepts, dare to do and fight, can they drive a new group of troops to walk out of the old path and explore new paths. As for the soldiers below, it's better to solve the problem. Aren't these new recruits just finished training? They can all be transferred to this new unit. To win future wars, although military force is important, thinking is even more important. Hiss. Zhu Qingwu took a cold breath and looked at Fang Ping as if he were looking at a monster. Talent. Absolutely talent. What kind of brain is needed to come up with such bold yet detailed ideas and concepts? The former's words can be said to have completely opened up a new world for him. This is true innovation. Surprisingly, he dares to predict the future trend of the battlefield without relying on military force, abandoning the previous system of merit upgrading, and instead using knowledge to determine the level of status. It has to be said that this idea is too bold. It can be said that once implemented in the army in the future, Zhu Qingwu could predict that it would be an unprecedented earthquake for the Dragon Kingdom. Fortunately, this idea is currently in the experimental stage. Otherwise, even though he holds the position of army commander, he cannot guarantee that he can speak up in the current national trend. This is just too far-fetched. Chapter 10. The commander is stimulated again, kneeling for fresh. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. The commander is stimulated again, kneeling for flowers to reward. In the end, Zhu Qingwu still left. It's time for dinner. He and Xiao Lu peeled off all the potatoes before leaving. When we leave. His hands were trembling slightly. Zhu Qingwu was shocked. Shocked by Fang Ping's astonishing remarks and bold ideas. Get out of the cafeteria and board the military vehicle. Under the escort of Xiao Lu, he rushed back to the headquarters all the way. After returning to the office, Zhu Qingwu immediately called his army district staff officer. Tell him to come over immediately. On the other side. After receiving the call, the chief of staff rushed non-stop from the family compound to the headquarters. I didn't even have time to eat. As soon as he entered the door, he quickly asked Zhu Qingwu. Lao Zhu, is there something wrong with calling me over so urgently? Zhu Qingwu waved his hand to hold back the document Xiao Lu. After the office door is closed again. He slowly spoke up. The tone is very complex. Lao Gu, if one day someone tells you that the current military system is too backward and the promotion system is not strict enough, and that major changes need to be made, are you right or wrong? General Gu's eyes widened slightly. What? The promotion of military positions is not strict enough. Old Zhu, you won't be stimulated by anything, will you? As the chief of staff of Zhu Qingjun. He is certainly aware of the former's recent actions and is said to be creating a brand new team as a hypothetical enemy of the army. He also agrees with this idea. How could it suddenly question the promotion of military positions? How many years has this system been in use? This is the case in all countries around the world. This old Jew must have lost his mind and gone crazy, right? I knew you would say that. Zhu Qingwu said with a bitter smile. Military force is not the most important thing. That guy dares to say it. When he first heard this idea, he was also scared. Now seeing that the always resourceful chief of staff was shocked. He inexplicably balanced a lot in his heart. After calming my mind and adjusting my sitting posture, Zhu Qingwu waved his hand and gestured for General Gu to sit down. You sit down first and listen to me slowly tell you. Okay, let me hear what happened to your commanding army commander, Lieutenant General Zhu Qingguo. As General Gu spoke, he walked over to the sofa across from his desk and sat down, waiting for Zhu Qingguo's explanation. Not long after he sat down, the entire office suddenly became quiet. Zhu Qingguo's slightly low voice followed slowly. In fact, there is a reason why I say this. Future wars will be high-tech wars, where individual and military forces will be infinitely weakened. Psychological warfare, information warfare, and a series of special warfare will be dominant. Zhu Qingguo's simple words completely caught the attention of General Gu. Because the future war that Zhu Qingguo talked about is completely different from what he had previously envisioned in his mind. Just as the topic deepens, General Gu was completely frightened by Zhu Qingguo's bold ideas. Change in promotion system. Bold appointment of civil servants. Everything was impacting his mind. Shaking and crumbling. If future wars are like what Zhu Qingguo said, that will have an unprecedented impact on the existing system of the Dragon Kingdom. And these high-ranking veterans bear the brunt. Lao Gu, do what I just said make sense based on this premise? Zhu Qingguo looked up at General Gu and ended the previous topic. It makes sense. Almost subconsciously, General Gu nodded in agreement. But soon, he quickly regained his senses and opened his eyes as wide as possible. You, who said all these words to? General Gu looked at Zhu Qingguo with a smile on his face and asked incredulously. After years of getting along, he didn't believe that Zhu Qingguo would have such a mind. Guarding the country's gates is his job. We can seek breakthroughs, boldly seek innovation, and break existing rules. This is definitely not Zhu Qingguo's personality. Did you discover it? Lao Gu, you are truly an old fox. Zhu Qingguo smiled and shook his head, knowing that he couldn't hide from this guy. Bang! General Gu's heart shook and he couldn't help but stand up. Who exactly is that person? Not to mention what kind of shock this theory will cause to the Dragon Kingdom. Just this unique bottoming out. It's enough to make this army chief of staff feel inferior. Genius. A genius's idea. He can't wait to see this genius anymore. It seems that you agree with what I said earlier. Zhu Qingguo said with a smile. I asked him before what kind of stimulation he was experiencing. Now your moral character is not as good as that. Agree, very agree. General Gu nodded repeatedly and said. Perhaps the current situation is not suitable for the entire army to implement. As long as one or a few points are absorbed, it is enough to elevate the strength of the Dragon Kingdom once again. After receiving approval from General Gu, Zhu Qingguo waved his hand. Okay. He dialed the phone on the table. Xiao Lu, immediately notify the officers at all levels below to draw out the outstanding new recruits for this period and form a professional Blue Army. We will also send personnel to the Institute of International Relations and the Academy of Military Sciences. I want to invite foreign military research experts and military talents there to serve as commanders of this unit. It's the commander, I'm going to prepare now. Xiao Lu's firm voice came through the phone. A military reform has begun. All of this stems from a few casual words from Fang Ping. At the same time, on the other side, after seeing off Zhu Qingguo and the others who worked for him, Fang Ping, who completed the evening task, was completely unharmed. Sure, Fang Ping, where did you find the foreign aid? I helped you finish all your afternoon work. Class monitor Pan Qing patted Fang Ping's shoulder and said. No way, I'm here to help you with your work, class monitor. Fang Ping helped to cut the potatoes into rolling pieces with a kitchen knife and said with a smile. You're a sensible kid who knows how to help. Pan Qing smiled and cursed, saying. I went to the platoon before and told the platoon leader about the situation. I never thought that the platoon leader wouldn't come in for a while. I completely don't believe what he said. Talking nonsense. I suffocated all over. Returning to the cooking class, seeing Fang Ping's relaxed smile made him feel much better in his heart. Fang Ping didn't reply and continued cutting potatoes with a smile. Ding dong, military merit value plus 1000. Ding dong, military merit value plus 1000. The system mall has been opened, please check with confidence. A cold voice suddenly rang out in Fang Ping's mind. It disappeared quickly again. Fang Ping was stunned for a moment. Military merit value. What thing? Open the system mall. His mind twitched. With a swish. A shopping mall suddenly appeared in my mind. It is filled with various densely packed goods. Shooting talent, gene potion, fighting talent, countless products are countless, making one's eyes dazzled. Fighting talent. Give it a try by clicking on it. After seeing the fighting talents in the mall, Fang Ping couldn't help but feel a little tempted. In his past life, he had already become the king of special forces. However, in terms of melee combat, there are still significant shortcomings. It's as if he doesn't have this talent at all. Fang Ping's intention is to select fighting talent and click directly. Soon, there were new changes in the panel of the system mall. Expert level combat talent mastery. 1000 master level combat talent mastery. 5000 master level combat talent mastery. 10,000 be good. Can only buy the lowest level expert level combat for his current military achievements. Seeing this, Fang Ping felt depressed for a moment. I thought 2000 military merit points were quite high, but I never thought I could only buy the most useless combat talent to master. Based on the principle of preferring scarcity over overindulgence, Fang Ping decided to accumulate a wave of military merit points first. Wait until the quantity is sufficient before redeeming. Either don't buy, if you want to buy, you need the best. It has to be said that Fang Ping is a bit drifting now. If it were done before. Not to mention being an expert level combat talent. Even if it's a bit of garbage. He can't even sleep happily.